Hello, fellow health and wellness seekers, and welcome to Nourish with Anna, where I share my knowledge as well as insight on mindfulness, health, wellness, and beauty, as well as interview healers and game changers on different topics. I am your host, Anna Frumpkin. I love to talk about subjects that bring value to others and speak to my heart. Hey everybody, I'm super excited today on the Nourish with Anna podcast. I have a dear friend, Masha Lisitsa. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she is super passionate about treating anxiety, stress, depression, eating disorders, poor self-esteem, and relationship challenges. She uses a combination of evidence-based approaches, including psychoanalytical, relational, and mindfulness-based training to help clients live freer and happier lives, which I love. And her approach is direct, genuine, empathic, and intuitive. So if you're struggling with discomfort or feeling anxious, stuck, or burnt out, or giving more than you are getting in your relationships, these are really signs that are telling you that it's time for a change. And in sessions with Masha, you guys really focused on increased self-awareness, breaking old habits, and learning new ways of relating. She also assists her clients in learning new ways to manage behaviors and that no longer serve you, and provide a really confidential, non-judgmental space as well to help process thoughts and experiences. The work that you can do with Masha together can really help increase self-esteem, reduce shame, and manage stress. So Masha, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, no, this has been a long time coming. Masha and I do a lot of collaboration work in the San Francisco Bay Area, and it really is a very great collaboration, and it can really help a lot of clients, especially with the therapy piece and the nutrition piece.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love collaborating with you, and it's such a nice way to get to help people from a really holistic perspective.
Yes, yeah, it's wonderful. So I've known Masha, we went to, school together, we went to middle school together. So, she was like, I always joke, like she was my practical psychologist when I was a kid. and so to watch her just bloom into this amazing, psychotherapist has just been absolutely wonderful to watch and witness. And yeah, it's just such a joy. And I'd love for you to tell the audience, how did you become a therapist? Like, what inspired you to become a therapist?
Yeah, so like a lot of other therapists, I was really inspired to do this work through my own personal healing. And, to be honest, I've really struggled with anxiety since I was a kid. I particularly had a really hard time in high school. And I started going to therapy when I was 16. I saw this much older male therapist, and I told him everything, and he really helped me. And I was really inspired by that. I had a hard time in school pretty much until I got to college. And at that point, I knew that psychology was something that felt right for me.
Yes.
I really immersed myself in it. My junior year of college, I interned as a life coach at a program for teens in South Africa. And at that point, I really knew that this work was for me, that it was really rewarding and fulfilling, and to be with people every day, to hear people's stories was what I wanted to do.
That's so awesome. Yeah. Can you tell us more about when you went to South Africa? Because I remember seeing pictures on Facebook. I'm like, she's in South Africa. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was study abroad. I was at Evergreen College, and I did an internship. It's a program, a government-funded program. It's South Africa has a really high problem with gang violence, with substance use. It's obviously at that time we weren't that far out from apartheid. There was really strong overt racism, and a lot of the youth there of color were really struggling, and still are. Yeah. And the program that I worked with, they provide a 3-month intensive residential treatment, and we did life skills, wilderness therapy, job prep, things like that. And it was a really powerful experience. The social workers and therapists there that I worked with were just amazing and really, trained me early on how to work with people, which was a nice adjunct to what I was
Yeah.
learning in college. And so that was really the first time I had, one-on-one
Yeah.
sessions, and it really, at that point, I just felt like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
Oh, that's awesome. So I'm happy that that experience was able to like really help, like you said, give you that life experience you needed to see if this is something you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool.
totally.
So what is it about the subject of psychology that you are the most passionate about?
Psychology is so vast, and there are
Yeah.
so many different theories and different ways to work. I've always loved working with dreams, with symbolism, Jungian stuff, but also with the therapeutic relationship itself.
Sorry, guys. Yeah. Technical difficulties. We got it.
It's okay. So yeah, the therapeutic relationship itself is what I find to be really amazing, because if you look at studies across the board, what makes therapy the most successful is when a person has a positive relationship with their therapist.
Yes.
So I think it's amazing how a good relationship with your therapist can change how you relate to people in the world. So you can see this, I noticed this, that people are when you build a good relationship, which a lot of people unfortunately did not have growing up, either with their parents or then translating to adulthood. So when they have that trusting relationship, you can see that people are more confident, able to maintain healthier relationships in the rest of their lives. So I'm really passionate about just caring for my clients, I guess. And I've also been really immersed in couples work for the last few years, and I love watching people love each other better. It's
Yes.
just that change feels so palpable with couples when you can see that they're just sweeter to each other and better able to understand what's going on in their dynamic. So it's really that relationship aspect of things that I'm really passionate about, including the relationship with yourself, that
Yeah.
with ourselves, that people work on.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And also like witnessing that transformation, right? Like witnessing that self-awareness that people
Hmm.
go through, that must be so empowering too. And
Yeah,
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 yeah, that's
absolutely.
great. Yeah. And especially with couples, because, I mean, just to be able to notice like, okay, this, you're doing this and this,
Hmm.
we're in a safe environment and we can talk about this. And I think that's
Hmm.
so important, to feel connected to your therapist, to feel like it's a safe environment, especially if it's just you or you're there with a loved one or it's a couple situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I forget that so many people don't have that. Not everybody has a deep friend that they can trust. Not everybody had a mother or a father or
Yeah.
family at all, or if they do, it was abusive or disconnected. And so at the end of the day, that's what you're providing, and there's so much theory behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's such powerful work, and I can feel that you feel so fulfilled by it. So that's
Mm,
beautiful. Yeah.
yeah.
So, for you, what is a misconception that you see in the world of psychotherapy?
Oh, there's so many.
Tell
I
us.
think, well, the one that upsets me the most is stigma. So you don't
Yeah.
have to be crazy. um, I hate that word, but you don't have to be
Yeah.
crazy to go to therapy. It's for everybody. And, who doesn't have things that they want to work on in themselves?
Yeah.
I think that most of the people I see are brilliant. And, the misconception is just that there has to be something really wrong. And this applies to couples too. If you're in a relationship, please don't wait until shit hits the fan to
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
Address your issues before your resentment becomes toxic.
Yeah.
And really the top reason that people come into therapy is anxiety.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that there has to be some deep trauma. It's the number one, I think, goal is increased self-awareness, increased self-knowledge.
Yeah.
And so many of us on this path are just trying to figure out who we are, what we're doing, where we're going. And I'm not going to say I think it's for everybody. Maybe that doesn't mean that it's the only path to healing. There are so
Exactly.
many different ways to figure that out.
Yeah.
But I think that most people can really benefit from it.
Oh yeah. I always joke. I say, from the minute we're born, we should just be assigned. And then through other stages of our life, we're assigned to someone we can connect with and trust. And yeah, but it's true. I mean, that connection and being able to know that, like, yeah, there are other avenues of healing, but knowing that I don't want to say, but that being said, knowing that you're going to somebody who, studied this work, right? So that's also the difference, anyone can call themselves a life coach now. Anyone can call themselves a healer or this or that, but really going to somebody who has studied, mental health, I think it's important, and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the idea is to really support growth. And I think another misconception on that topic is just that, people come in and they want advice, or they want, really a quick fix. And it's not about going and having someone tell you what to do, but having somebody, help you to figure that out. And that can be frustrating for some people. But ultimately it's that kind of, teach a man to fish kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
well, and then you come up with the answers organically on your own. And no one is telling you, right, and dictating your life. You're coming up with it on your own. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, that's so great. So what are some 3 general tips you can give our listeners, when they're feeling stressed out or overwhelmed?
I want to say, meditate.
Yeah.
I've done 2 silent retreats now, and honestly, it's the best thing I've ever done for my anxiety. There's so much clinical research, to support that as well. Meditation is, right now, when we're so overstimulated and overworked, I just think it's so beneficial for stress. So that's a major one. And I tell a lot of my clients to try just downloading Headspace, or just to do 10 minutes a day. And I hope that for people, it's not something that creates more guilt, like I'm bad because I didn't do it, but just giving yourself some silence, especially nowadays with all the screen time that we have.
Yeah.
I think the others are really just having better boundaries. I feel like I talk about boundaries all the time. That includes with work, with friends, with your family. Where especially women have such a hard time saying no. And
Yes.
it's something to practice, that we don't have to please everybody. And that includes with work too. In the US, people don't tend to take all of their time off. But you have to, at the end of the day, when you look back on your life, what do you want to have spent your time doing? And you have to choose you, and that, I think, is the most important relationship. That doesn't mean abandoning people, but sometimes people come in and they have sleep issues, or they have anxiety, and they want to figure out how to fix the symptom. Like, what can I do to sleep better? And that's not the issue. It's really a lifestyle change. If you're not sleeping, then there's something that's keeping you up at night, and that maybe you're doing too much, and your body's trying to tell you that. So that's really my general tips, is just better boundaries.
I love that. And you've touched on so many, great things, because really getting to the root cause, and meditation, because that's something that I'll talk about too with people as well. Like, download Headspace or Calm and try 5-10 minutes. But what you said about guilt, I think, is huge, because some people are like, oh, I didn't do it, and then they feel shame. So how can somebody feel better about, like, okay, like, just baby steps, right? Like, incorporating something without feeling this shame, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Guilt is just the worst, whether it's with what you're eating or not eating, or if you disappointed somebody, or all of that, and that's kind of my third piece around tips, is just really letting go, just to generally let go of things you can't control and not to hold on too tight. And so many people, mentors, consultants, meditation teachers have told me that just to be able to let go of things you can't control,
Yeah.
and let yourself kind of ride the waves of life a little bit more.
And in regards to the silent meditation that you went on, I found that to be so fascinating, and I really want to try that one day. But for you, like, where can people? Are there places all throughout the country people can check that out? Is there a resource people can check out?
Yes, absolutely. There are meditation centers all across the country. Well, maybe not all across, but many places. They're accessible. I go to Spirit Rock, and they offer scholarships, work exchange. They have a sliding scale. There's also, I've never done these. I think they're more intense, but I know there's Vipassana centers, Goenka centers, things like that. So I understand, recognize it's certainly a privilege to be able to take that time and to do that, which is not fully accessible to everybody, but there are centers that work really hard to make that accessible to people as much as they can.
That's
So
wonderful. Yeah. Go on your trusted Google and type in your area meditation centers. Because I also feel like when you're in community, right, it can really be beneficial when you're meditating in community.
Yeah, definitely it can. Absolutely. There's a lot of groups that do weekly meditations. There's also, I know online, there's a bunch of resources on Dharma Seed, videos and things like that you can watch, if you can do from home. So.
That's awesome. Yeah. So have you also noticed in your work, working one-on-one, this rise in mental health issues associated with the overuse of social media? Like, I know for me, I do all my work online, and if, talking about boundaries, if I don't have boundaries, like I'm done, at a certain time in the evening, or, then it does become very overwhelming for me. So yeah, have you noticed a rise in any mental health issues?
I love this question. I see it going both ways. So it's pretty narcissistic and ego feeding,
Yeah.
right? The likes and all of that. I think what social media does is, it can encourage us to develop this false self that is sort of edited and manicured, the one that we want to project to the world, right? So you feel like you're building a connection with people, but it's really so limited. So I think it does, in that sense, impact how we relate to people.
Yeah.
And it does increase anxiety. I mean, who really needs to see what their ex is doing? Right? Or you see pictures of people looking happy and you wonder what's wrong with you if you're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes I joke about, I wish that couples would post a picture of themselves mid-fight, like, just to show a real moment,
Yeah.
So there's that. And then on the other hand, I love how certain Instagram accounts, like Hilarious Humanitarian, I love her.
Awesome.
And some others, do share these really raw feelings and have the ability to reach people that can be really isolated, and show them that they're not alone.
Yeah. So what would be your advice for somebody who maybe, is online, maybe they're doing it for business, maybe they're doing it for, because it's like, for example, like with my account, I'm like, oh, here's some health tips and positivity upliftment. But I agree with what you're saying. There needs to also be that somehow bringing that realness, right? Like, like you said, like take a picture mid-fight of a couple's fighting. I love that. Yeah. So what? Yeah.
I think it's just important to have boundaries with it.
Yeah.
And, just like you said, it does impact our attention span, our presence in life, our ability to authentically connect. And it includes texting too. I don't think that those are a replacement for real connection. And I guess I want to say still pick up the phone, still connect with people in real life.
Yeah.
And and just not to overdo it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really overstimulating, and I think it's really overwhelming.
Yeah, totally. Super overwhelming. And have you noticed with teenagers growing up in this like Snapchat, Instagram, social media age, have you noticed an increase in anxiety with them? Or?
That's huge. Yeah, I do work with some teens, and I see that it can, think about the isolation, and obviously I know cyberbullying has been a big thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get in a fight with your friends, and you know now there's all these different ways to exclude
Yeah.
and to ridicule and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I think it is hard to be a teen in the digital age in that way.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I feel for them in that everything gets documented. So I know there are some high school moments I would not have wanted documented. And I see that with my teens too. And also that, they some of them, they only talk on, Snapchat or
Oh yeah.
something.
Yeah, exactly.
And
And this is
I,
how they connect with the, if you're listening, I have the quote, the quote site.
right.
Connect. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a problem because, I know they're actually doing, I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about how they're going to do a really long-term study on the impact of digital use.
Yeah.
They're really starting to do that now that, there are generations that are experiencing that, immersed in that from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I worry that it will impact people's ability to make eye contact, to speak to each other, I mean, maybe that sounds extreme, but over
No, it's where
time.
we're going. Everything has an app. You like your refrigerator has an app, your vacuum
Mm,
has an app. And now there's people are putting cameras everywhere, and it's
mm-hmm.
like we're getting saturated in this digital. So I think what you're saying is really teaching these principles of boundaries. And if you're a parent, or you're in a family and you've got maybe nieces and nephews who are teenagers and you're around them, just act right, like do your best to show them the eye contact. Don't be on your phone around them maybe all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah, totally. Just talking to people, it's hard talking to people and putting your stuff away.
yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's hope, friends. Use these tools and techniques for sure. And then I know, in my nutrition practice, I'll see a lot of people who are burnt out, right? Maybe they work in the tech industry, or they're just working office jobs, or they're just moms who are feeling burnt out and stressed out. And so I'll come up with the nutrition, the supplementation, and an herbal protocol. And I know you and I have been able to collaborate so well with individuals. Have you seen the connection between food and mood as well?
Yes, absolutely. Food is so important. And women, especially, as I mentioned earlier, are constantly evaluating whether they've been good or bad, I think, with
Yeah.
what they've eaten that day. The obsession with food and guilt is on the rise, orthorexia, it's called.
Yeah.
But apart from that, we can talk about depression or anxiety all day in session, but if a person's eating a diet that's, for example, loaded in sugar, of course they're going to feel that way.
Exactly.
What we put in our bodies, what we do matters. Even in sometimes I use the anxiety and phobia workbook,
Yeah.
and it has some recommendations for a diet and lifestyle that reduces anxiety. And even I've had the clients that I've had that have worked with you, I can really see an improvement in their well-being and their mental health.
That's awesome. Yeah.
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 So it's, it takes looking at your health from all sorts of different perspectives,
Yeah.
and noticing how it impacts you. And again, that's not to obsess about, but just to be aware of, our relationships to our bodies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And I feel like the first step is awareness. And so if you can understand like, okay, I want to go talk to a therapist. I want to work on some issues, right? Some blocks that have been coming up or something that's been coming up. And then hopefully that will, open the floodgates of other different, avenues as well, right? So then you start kind of understanding like, oh, when I eat this croissant in the morning, it affects me later and my mood and my energy. Not to deem the croissant as bad, because croissants can be absolutely delicious. That being said, it's about like, okay, instead of having the croissant, 5 days out of the week, let's try for 4 or 3 or whatever, right? So I'm also really careful about not saying a food is good or bad because of this kind of dieting cycle. So I love that you touched on that, and that you all,
yeah. I mean, often I notice this sort of cycle where a person can feel stressed or overwhelmed after work, and they come home and they'll eat these, they'll, whatever it is, maybe binge eat or eat things that might be comforting, and in the moment it creates some soothing, and then afterwards it's followed by physical discomfort or guilt, and then there's a whole cycle around that. So it feels like there's an easy spiral to get into with food. And there's this beautiful podcast. I love the Dear Sugars, and
awesome.
about the sugars. Cheryl Strayed, and she talks about listening to your body, and talks about the connection with mental health and food, and
intuitive eating.
Intuitive eating. The book that I love to recommend is also Women, Food, and God, that talks about relationship to love, being connected to relationship to food. And for a lot of us, it's how we know how to treat ourselves or nourish ourselves. And sometimes it's the process is about finding other ways to more sustainably nourish ourselves beyond just in those moments.
Like I always say, how can we treat ourselves, sometimes without food, right? Like maybe that's massage, maybe that's flotation tank, right? If you guys don't know what that is, it's really popular in the Bay Area. It's like a huge magnesium Epsom salt bath. Like finding treat yourself, and then still like being able to enjoy food and making the connection that we don't need to feel guilty if we're going to eat the cake, right? Like, can we eat the cake without the guilt?
I mean, that's totally. And enjoy your enjoyment. Like, if you're gonna do it, just do it.
Do it. Go all in,
and it's okay. It's okay. That's often the binging and purging cycle of or the restraint cycle of, you have something and then you don't have anything, and then naturally the pendulum swings the other way, and it's really about balance.
And it's mentally exhausting, when you're on that.
Oh my God, yes.
So that's why I really believe finding the support, as if you're listening and you're noticing you're on that kind of, crash dieting or that kind of cycle, finding the support of a, great psychotherapist is important, guys. For sure.
It definitely worries me with teens I see nowadays, so young. The concern with food feels like it's beginning just so young. And
social media too, right? Like the connection of the social media, and
because you're posting your body and all of that, and I mean, your body is doing the best it can to serve you. And I wish for people to feel. What's that?
Oh no, and it's waiting for you to love it. It's waiting for you to accept it and love it and be kind.
I think there is a lot of body size acceptance that is also on the rise at the same time. I hope for every woman to just feel more permission to be who she is in her body.
Exactly. Well, this was so much fun, and I really feel like we were able to give our listeners a lot of value, which is wonderful. Where can people learn more about you?
Oh, thank you for asking. So I'm in private practice. My website is MashaLisitsa.com, and I also have a Facebook page, Masha Lisitsa Therapy. And clients can meet with me either via my private practice, or I also work part-time with Two Chairs Clinic in the financial district.
That's wonderful. Yes, guys, definitely check out her work if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it was just such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's great to be here, and I really appreciate just talking with you about these important things.
Yeah, and maybe we'll do it again. This was a lot of fun. So guys, remember to be nourished, eat well, and live mindfully, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Hey friends, thank you so much for tuning in to the Nourish with Anna podcast. If you enjoyed it, loved it, and received value, it would mean so much to me if you could go over right now and hit the subscribe button and leave a review letting others know how much you loved it. If you want to find out more information about me and my coaching, go to www.annafrumkin.com or find me on all social media platforms at Nourish with Anna. I love and appreciate you all. Remember to be nourished, eat well, and live mindfully.